Okay, well, hello and good afternoon to everyone gathered here today. My name is Jody Luchuk. I'm an acquisitions editor here at the University of Toronto Press. I would like to warmly welcome you to the launch of the gatherings. It is going to be a very special hour as Shirley Heger and Mel Piane share their extraordinarily unique story of reconciliation and reimagining with you. Just a note that our audience capacity on Zoom is absolutely full today. So some of you will be redirected to the live stream on YouTube. So for those of you on Zoom, you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions as the launch is in session. And for those of you on YouTube, you can use the live stream chat function to post questions. So we're going to be monitoring both of those locations, and we will get to as many of your questions as we can in the last portion of the launch. Before we get started today, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto Press operates. For thousands of years, this has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, and we are truly grateful for the opportunity to work on this land. I'll be turning things over to Shirley Heger momentarily. She is the author who led the book initiative of the gatherings. Shirley is a lifelong participant in social justice. She spent most of her career as a community educator with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension, and she remains an active ally to Wabanaki peoples. She's a member of the Friends Committee on Maine Public Policy and a Circles of Trust facilitator with the National Center for Courage and Renewal. She will be guiding us through the launch this afternoon, and she'll also introduce our next segment. So over to you, Shirley.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for joining us. As we did in our gatherings, we would like to open this event with a traditional welcoming. Mi'kmaq will offer a traditional opening in her language as we send our little book out into the world. Mi'kmaq?
So, Hello, Fiskuk. Today is a good day for all of us. So I'll send out traditional greetings on behalf of us. Thank you, Shirley. So Chikisuk, Chijakamijina, Niskamijina, Miwedem Dandeli, Iganamuyak Nimajuahan, Miwedem Dandel Mawaliek, Chitniga Giskuk, Skudaman Dandel Mawidayaget Kup, Uchit. Wantahov nan dandeli maukadamudi gloksit hamu. Nego dulmamajotin and regularly aguchitna kiskuk. Nige dandamawaliek. No, I'm sitting okma. Many blessings. I'll move it back to you, Shirley. Thank you.
I think it's over to you, Jody.
So I thought I would start by just giving a little bit of a background on how this book came to be. The proposal for the gatherings landed in my inbox just before noon on a Thursday about 3 years ago. And upon opening that proposal file, I knew immediately that this was a story that needed an audience. As an editor at a university press, I and all of my colleagues, we work with manuscripts in Indigenous studies in a whole host of disciplines, law and education and health, history, and more. Many of these projects are focused on addressing public policy and government interventions in the evolving relationship between Indigenous peoples and settlers. The gatherings, however, was different. It was the story of a group of people, Indigenous and settler, who came together because they wanted to heal the fissures in their own community. They weren't waiting for public policy to tell them when or how to do that. Instead, they were compelled to act based on a shared desire for a more just, a more equitable, and ultimately a more sustainable world. And what I found most compelling in my first and in every subsequent reading of the manuscript was the bravery in which the members of Malpiane shared their experience of coming together in those gatherings over those years. Each participant recalls with such searing honesty feelings like anger and guilt and shame, in addition to the joy that ultimately emerged from that difficult process of coming to see the world over time from each other's perspectives. And so what they gift to all of us with this book is a blueprint, really. They show us that another way is indeed possible. So for each of us that wonders what we as individuals can do to participate in and move forward this critical work of reconciliation, this book shows us how. It shows us that we can indeed walk together into a future in which each of us has a place and in which we preserve this planet for the generations to come. And so with no further ado, it is my honor and my privilege to present the Malpiane Collective so that they may share their story of healing and community with you. Shirley, congratulations on this momentous day. I know we are all looking forward to this conversation between you and your collaborators.
Thank you, Jody, so much. I'm going to ask each person here to take just a minute or less to say their name and where they live in whatever way they would like to describe it. And I'll just begin. My name is Shirley Hager, and I'm here in what is known as Chesterville, in the western foothills of what is now known as Maine, living with acknowledgement and gratitude that I am in Wabanaki territory. And I wanted to ask Wayne to join us, but I think he hasn't been able to get on yet. So I'm just going to call on you so that we can move through and each one of us gets a chance to introduce ourselves. So Dana?
Yes, Dana Mitchell. In the book is Theodore Mitchell. I'm Benawapske. I live at the Penobscot Nation in Maine, near Old Town.
Thank you. Francis?
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. My name is Frances and I'm beaming in from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I lived in the territory known as Maine many years ago and became part of the gatherings while I was staying there. And it's the middle of the night here in New Zealand, so if I nod off, I'm not having a senior moment, but it's usually sleep time for me.
Thanks for joining us, Francis. Alma?
What am I going to say?
Alma, you're muted.
Okay, you'll have to keep reminding me of that. My name is Alma Brooks. My spirit name is Jabaway Kwe. I live, I'm Wolastoqiyik. I live at St. Mary's First Nation in New Brunswick, Canada.
Thank you. Barb?
Barb Martin, Mi'kmaq, originally from Eskinwobidich, and I live in the Upper Kingsclear and Wolastoqiyik territory.
Thank you. Shirley?
Hi, I'm Shirley Bowen, and I live in Biddeford in the state of what's known as Maine.
Mm-hmm. Mi'kmaq?
Hello, my name is Megan Mahan, and I'm Jagech, Wogamach Jagech, Lobster Clan, and I'm from Eskinwobidich. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Marilyn?
My name is Marilyn Roper. I lived in Holton, Maine on traditional Maliseet land with the thriving Holton band of Maliseets a few miles away.
Thank you. And Debbie? And you're muted, Debbie.
I'm Debbie Layton, and I live in the southern part of the state, And I got into the gatherings because I needed to meet and work with the Native people in my area.
Thank you. And I don't see Wayne. I'm hoping he can join us in a moment. Wayne Newell is Passamaquoddy, and he was born at the Passamaquoddy community of Sabayag, and now has lived for many, many years at the other Passamaquoddy community, Madotmikuk, on the east coast of what is now Maine. So I want to acknowledge those of us who couldn't be here, as well as the members of Mobiane who have passed on since we did the interviews. Gisatanamuk was unable to join us today, and we miss him. He is Wampanoag from the community of Mashpee on what is now called Cape Cod, but lives in Mi'kmaq territory with his family at Esconobidich, also known as Burnt Church, New Brunswick. Our members, our co-authors who have passed on: Gwen Bear, a Wolastoqiyik or Maliseet elder who was born on the Tobique First Nation Reserve on the western border of what is now known as New Brunswick. Joanne Hughes, born and raised in Quincy, Massachusetts, living most of her life on Cape Cod with her heart in later years in Ireland. Betty Peterson, born in Pennsylvania, living in New York, Chicago, and in the latter part of her life in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And Wesley Rothermel, born in Pennsylvania Dutch country, and after many moves and many adventures, returning home to Pennsylvania to be closer to his family. Could just have a moment to remember these people who have been with us from the very beginning. Thank you. So, several of us were involved in planning this event for you, and we agreed that I would propose 2 or 3 questions for various ones of us to respond to. And we wanted to start with our elders, especially those who were part of the gatherings from the very beginning. So for those who got involved in the gatherings right from the start, I'd like to ask, why did you decide to participate? Why did you stay? And what did you hope that you or others would gain? And maybe, could we start with Dana?
Yes, thank you. My intent here at the start of this gathering was to be able to share some of my understanding of what was happening with the Native people in the state of Maine, and to be able to share that message that I carried in regards to that. And at the same time, I'm used to being in a diverse group of people. And so it was a good opportunity for me to meet and talk with them as well.
Thank you. Alma, why did you get involved in the beginning, and why did you stay?
Well, I guess for me, I had already been doing some work with people, and Marilyn Roper is one of them. We worked in the prisons together. I for a long time, I understood that there are 2 ways of looking at the world and having a relationship with the world around us. And there were very different ways. There were very different perspectives, very different views. So, and I was kind of trying to educate people about the Indigenous worldview, one person at a time, which would take forever to, make an impact in the world. So I thought this gathering spaces would have given an opportunity to reach more people. And I like the idea of having the safe space. I feel that we created a safe space in which to say the truth. We were given permission to be able to speak truth, our truth, and share that with one another. So that to me was the value of these circles. And of course, you know, the relationship between Indigenous people here and the Quaker community go back a long ways. There's a history of working together. I believe the Quakers learned how to pray in a circle that came from our people. Their early relationship with our peoples, Indigenous peoples. And so that also helped to endear them and the work that they do. And, you know, to be able to find that spark of trust, to be able to sit down and speak with one another. And, you know, for many years, my focus was to the preservation of my own people, the Indigenous nations in this land. That was my primary concern. But I have come to the point now that when I look around, I see something very, very different now. And I believe now that there needs to be a shift in our thinking. There has to be a shift in our thinking, in that now the most important thing to focus on is not just the integrity or the preservation of our sovereignty as Indigenous people, but the preservation of life on this planet, because we have come to a very precarious place. And by all means, this book, although it's going to, I believe, make quite an impact when people read it, it's certainly not the end of the story. It's mainly just the beginning that's necessary. And so, yeah, that's, I don't know if if I can speak later on, I'll share more. But
there's more.
Right
You'll
now,
have another chance.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alma. That's beautiful. Debbie, I know you wanted to say something about why you got involved in the beginning.
Well, I got involved in the beginning because I knew so little about the people in our state. And I wanted to know more. And it was an opportunity for me to meet with them. It was a great time when we had our gathering. And it gave us a chance to talk together about the issues that we were both concerned about. And it also gave me a great time to learn. And one of the things I remember great was John Mohawk and his talk about the history and of the land and the history of this part of the Native community. And I also, though I don't know how many remember it, I had a great time with Sipsis as she talked about her poetry. I enjoyed that very much. And one of the biggest things I remember was the early morning in the cold, getting up for an early morning prayer circle around the sacred fire and freezing. And but it was wonderful because there were the opportunity of prayers from all of us. And then we had the smoking of the peace pipe. But the most wonderful thing in all was to stand back when we were finished and watch the sun rise over the horizon. So there were special moments when we were together and when I had an opportunity to make friends and to learn about how we might all work together. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Debbie. Well, we thought that it might be interesting to share what the uppermost insight or the thing that has stayed with you from the gatherings, and especially how that experience has impacted your life since. So, Mikamahan, I wonder if you might start us off sharing about that question.
Well, I think, as you all know, in the book, I was the one that was resisting. But once I've had the opportunity to witness, and build up the courage to sit in the circle. But prior to that was witnessing the circle councils from a distance and not really participating. But over the course of time, years, witnessing the dedication, the sincerity and the dedication of the white community being, so respectful and listening to our elders and our community folks, and the courage that was being spoken, and that shifted my thinking. And there was something that started to form, maybe, a form of like, I can trust, and maybe this was a space, where we can really hear each other and get to know each other. I think that was one of the things for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Barb, you have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do. There's a word in Mi'kmaq that means human, because it's part of the web of life. Okay, so humans have a place in the web of life, and my teachers are sitting around here in this circle, in this gathering itself. So Olno means humans. But over time, for us as Indigenous people or as Mi'kmaq, we got to know that as only Native people or Indigenous people. So it came over time when we were all Olno at one point in time, because we were humans. So as time went on, like, I understood the word Olno just to be Indigenous people, which then said to me that we stopped thinking of white people as humans, because they had removed themselves from the web of life through their actions, through their ways, and so on, through history. We have a messy history. So for me, racism, it's a dehumanizing process. And I began to get that insight, that in seeing white people as the other, as they see us, we're the other, that I was part of that dynamic. That as I began to heal through my own culture, through ceremony and so on, I began to see white people in a different way, as Mi'kmaq has said. They weren't only in my mind, and I didn't really do much fraternizing with them because I had certain perceptions. But in these gatherings, like Mi'kmaq said, she's the one that introduced me to that gathering. I was watching all of you, and I thought, these are such strange folks, man. Like, look at them all suffering through these hot days and so on. But after a while, I began to establish a little bit of trust. So I've grown in that experience. And there's a saying, I don't know whether it's from New Zealand or Australia, but it means, I see you, right? It has a very deep connotation when people say, I see you. It means I see you as a human being. I see your spirit. I see you as a real entity within creation. So I have to say that some of you have taught me that I've learned to see you in a different way. And so I just want to acknowledge, Shirley, you're one of the ones that I first said it to. And I want to thank you and the others for having helped me to move beyond seeing you in a way that may not have been entirely human. Okay, so that was my insight, and I've healed a little bit from that.
Thank you, Barb. Shirley?
I think the strongest thing that has stayed with me is that if we're serious about building relationships and being allies with those who are experiencing oppression, who have and continue to, then we have to be committed to sitting with righteous anger. And it's not always easy the first few times you do it, but we have to listen in order for us to take in the experiences and the pain that has been experienced in a way that those of us who are white have not experienced. And we don't want to be defensive in listening, and we don't want to let any guilt that we might feel move us to a place of having it become about us and wanting to be reassured because, oh no, you're not that person or whatever. That we just have to sit with the experience and learn from the experience so we can be better.
Thank you, Shirley.
Hello.
Wayne, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're coming in loud and clear.
Okay, I had that first number you gave me didn't work. I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me.
Oh, well, I think you're on. You're with us now, and we're really glad. We're really glad.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I got through.
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. We're listening to people speak to one of the questions, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to settle in, and then I'll call on you. How's that?
Oh, that's good. I have heard most of it. I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me. So I switched numbers, and that seemed to have worked.
Okay, all right. So you're up to speed. Well, I'm going to ask Marilyn if she might speak to the question about the thing that has stayed with her and how that has impacted her. And I'll come right back to you, Wayne.
10-4.
Okay. You're muted, Marilyn.
I'm unmuted now.
You're good.
I'm going to make this very short and sweet because mostly we want to hear from Wayne. And because Gissatanamuk is not with us, and he and Alma were my main educators, my teachers, my mentors, I want to read something from Gissatanamuk that to me was the most important lesson. Although I must say I am still maybe in first grade, I do not feel that I am totally understanding, but I am trying. For those of you out there who have read the book or have the book, I am reading from page 59. This is in Gissatanamuk's own telling about the experiences. One of the fundamental differences in philosophies between white and indigenous cultures is that one culture says the land belongs to them, and the other culture talks about belonging to the land. These are two completely different constructs. This is one of the most important lessons that I have had, from archaeology to earth care, just the whole point of view, which of course is in the language of the indigenous people. That's all.
Thank you, Marilyn. Wayne, would you like to speak going back, because you were part of the gatherings right in the beginning? Was there something you wanted to share about why you decided to participate and why you stayed?
I guess it's interesting. I've been thinking about this quite a bit. What I'm listening to from the participants right now is sort of brings back a lot of memories. As probably you all know, I was involved in the education, or I'm still am actually. And one of my chief frustrations in working in a native school was that all of the teachers that we had were non-native people who had little knowledge about the children they were teaching, and the community that the children and adults lived in. And they came, I think, to a large extent with good intentions, as most everybody that came with good intentions. And so it became a frustration for me, I guess, quite a few years ago, that I would be thinking one way, and I would be hearing other philosophies, I guess, from my non-native colleagues. And so that was a frustration that long existed, and to a great extent still exists today, although we're beginning to make some headway in terms of, they call it decolonization now. We've called it different things over the years. And of course, when you think about the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Department of Interior, you have this notion, even from Native people, that somehow we had to be remolded to something that we weren't necessarily, or was not us. And so that's the reason, I guess, that when I found the beginnings of our gathering, that all of a sudden, as much as we, even those of us, native and non-native in the gathering, we didn't in the beginning, and maybe we had some inkling that we were one, but we had many things to work out. And the thing that made it strong for me was the use of the sacred circle, the notion that if I had the talking stick, for example, it was my turn to speak whatever was in my spirit, whatever was in my mind. And I owed the same respect and dignity to whoever else had the next circle, the next stick for talking in the circle. And that really impressed me, that the people that I was gathering with was showing a lot of respect for this process, because to me, the sacred circle is a sacred prayer, and it just magnifies our potential dignity as human beings. And I found that very, very early, even though we had a lot of learning to do on both sides. I had a lot of learning to do with a thing called patience, because, I was just, wanted to rush in there and believe what I believe, and that's all there was to it. And that was not all there was to it. I had to learn. I had to do a lot of learning, and I did. And that's why over the years I've stayed involved in this group, because the people that who have become very close friends gave me the opportunity to sit in that circle with them. So I guess that's my impression of why I got involved.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. Well, I guess this gives me an opportunity to say that what stays with me most is the understanding of how much we white descendants of Europeans have lost by what we wrought when we came here. We refused an opportunity to engage with the people of the land and with the land itself that led certainly to the near genocide perpetrated upon the indigenous peoples here, but it led to our own diminishment as a people and a culture. And I think that, the gatherings just taught that so strong. Our experience in the gatherings made me realize that so strongly. I feel like America as a country won't save itself from the ills we suffer, including what's happening to our climate, to the land and the water, until we find ways to repair and restore this relationship, which could have been so different. And this understanding is part of what drives me in the work that I do now, advocacy work as part of a Quaker public policy group here in Maine that seeks to stand with the Wabanaki people, working particularly now as they try to get out from under an oppressive settlement act that negatively impacts their lives every day. So that's what has stayed with me. I thought it would be nice to end with, what our hopes are for this book, and why we think the timing is right for this book now. We've been working on this book. The idea was first conceived 13 years ago, and we've been working on it since. So here we are. And Migamahan, I wonder if you might have something to share about your hopes for this book. You've been so eloquent about that all along the way.
Hey, well, I'm glad Wayne is here with us too, because this is a conversation that Wayne and I had, and we got really excited about our conversation about our experience when we all gathered at Maine during the launch of the Penobscot, the Passamaquoddy dictionary. And so, it was a great celebration. And so we thought about the work that's been done through the gatherings. And we started dreaming about sharing our experience. And that for me, I felt like I wanted my children and my grandchildren and the young people in my communities, Indigenous communities, to know that there was that space, that people did gather, and that we did form friendships, and we made a commitment to each other. And then we wanted to gift that into the future, not just to our children, but to all our future children and grandchildren, that we did it, and what confirm that. It was Barb's response when I was talking to her, and she said, you know, when your children feel comfortable with the friends, you know, that was part of the gathering, you know, and she says that's evidence that the community has been formed, something along that line, maybe more eloquently, more eloquently said when Barb had shared that. But you know, that was it, you know. And I don't know if Wayne, I know Wayne must remember, because we both looked at Shirley, that she can help, and it's like creating a, hey, this is such a good idea, and Shirley, you will write the book or help start that. And you know, so I just wanted to share that part. But there was a lot of good thoughts that was happening around the last circle when we gathered together, all of us, you know, with the ones who were not with us anymore. And, you know, that became even more important to us. It's their voices as well that were moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barb?
Sure. What I just hoping that the timing is right. I think that was a conversation we had with recently, Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, it wouldn't. This book would have just went, and that was it. Sorry about that. And but you know, I think people are ready to really look at this relationship across this chasm of the other, how we other ourselves, as I called it, to really look at one another as human. We have things happening in the United States, as you know, and here in Canada as well. So with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, their calls to action around the world as well. So I think people are ready to genuinely try to see one another in a different way and to make those inroads. And I think the book, I'm hoping that the book would be one of the tools that would help them, knowing that folks like us had actually tried and did it.
Dana, would you like to share anything about that?
Well,
I'm sorry?
how much time do we have left? Anyway.
We have to make time for questions.
I have felt that because I was an opponent to the land claims and experiencing a lot of negative things around me from the outside people, the non-native people, that in regards to our rights as human beings who have always, this is our ancestral lands and we lived here. We've never been defeated in war. We never gave up our rights. We still lived on our lands, even though that the state government felt that they had all authority. So because I was an opponent to the process of the land claims and totally feeling that everything was taken from us that we had left. And so it was my opportunity to address the issue that I never accepted that land claims. And I didn't like the way that I was treated. And so after the land claims so-called process was approved by the federal government, even though it was illegal in our minds, that I would start addressing the issue, not with the adults, but with the children. So I started doing cultural presentations to the children and finding great joy on that part, that I would come forward and talk about our culture more deeply to them. And so in the process of how I became involved with the circle was through the fact that I needed to share with a group of people that were interested in what our issues were and what was going on, when 90% of the people walking on the other side of our river, they didn't care because they felt that they had all the rights to oppress us. You know, when you talk about post-traumatic stress, well, as generational trauma and historical trauma, and the Native people have been exposed all these hundreds of years to this type of living. And I felt that it was time that that stopped and we be recognized as human beings, not second class or third class, but upright human beings. We're still here. Spiritually, and where I live right here in this community is all nothing but oak trees around. And the spiritual message was that we are like the oak trees. We are strong, we are big, and our heart and our spirit is red inside. And because of that, that's who we are. But I felt that being a part of the circle and speaking about all of this, because there was a lot of questions that came with my concerns, and that it was important for people to hear about what went on and what actually happened. And the fact that I said that in time that this will have to be redressed because it is illegal. It's interesting that since we started our circle here in this talk, there's been nothing but thunder outside. No rain, just thunder. So someone's listening in the higher beings and sending a message to all. I have more to say, but that can come in time.
Thank you, Dana, so much. Alma, your hopes for the book and why you think the timing's right?
Well, I think the potential for the book is great. I would love to see this book be a resource in the universities and in the book clubs and in the schools of higher learning. And for me, that would kind of dot the I's and cross the T's as to why I got involved in the first place. But there's so much more work to be done. And, you know, this little virus that we're all pissed off about right now, this little virus, it stopped the world in its tracks. Mm-hmm. And that needed to happen because, you know, everybody's crying to get back to normal. Well, the normal they're talking about, we're heading for a brick wall as far as life on this planet goes. And so I think the urgency, the importance and the timing of this book and the beginning of something great. I hope it's the beginning of something greater than ourselves, that it will inspire or light the fire for a sharing of urgent knowledge, ancient knowledge. And a lot of it has to do with what Dana was talking about, but even beyond that, there's knowledge that's necessary for the continuation of life on this planet. We're not Alma Brooks, but the scientists, your own scientists are telling us that we're on the cusp of the sixth extinction, mass extinction. We're on the cusp of that if things do not change. And I'm inspired by a new science now that's emerging, and that both Western and Indigenous practitioners are very interested in studying. And that is the biology of belief, the epigenetics, the understanding of epigenetics. our people understood how our ceremonies and how our teaching and how life works. They understood it, but they couldn't explain it. They couldn't explain it. All they knew is that it works. But now with this new science, it gives us a new insight, a bird's eye view, if you will, on where we must go, in order to preserve life here in the future. I don't think the answer is going to the moon and creating life over there or to Mars or whatnot. I don't think that's the answer. When really resources, valuable resources should be spent right here on this earth to preserve this beautiful planet. This planet that has given so generously to not only human life, but all life. And we are the ones that are the most dependent. Human beings are the most dependent. You know, if other species disappear, life would on this planet would stop. If life in the oceans, if species in the oceans disappeared, the life would stop. But you know, if the human species disappeared, life would thrive. I mean, you know, we got to think about that. What are we doing?
Thank you, Alma.
This little virus has given us this time out. It has forced us to take this time out and think about what we're doing. And, you know, I want to thank Shirley for the hours and hours of time that she has spent to put these thoughts and words on the pages of a book, and her dedication to that, Shirley.
Thank you,
I
Alma.
have to thank you for that, because if you hadn't done this, we probably are so busy out there, you know, trying to change the world that we wouldn't have the time to do what you did. But this, I think, to take all of that and what was gathered at these gatherings that we held together, we can't do it alone. Your people can't do it alone. Our people can't do it alone. Human beings have to change their way of thinking.
Alma, I'm gonna cut in there, and because I just want to, but thank you so much for those words. And Jody, do we have just a couple minutes for Wayne and Francis? We wanted to get to them.
I'm sure we've got lots of questions though that have been coming in. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind, that our audience is
Wayne,
eager to participate.
I know. Wayne, did you have something you wanted to share about your hope for the book that we could, you and Francis, just a minute?
I did want to also second Alma's words about your dedication. I remember when my phone rang, I could always figure it wouldn't be a few minutes between Shirley and I. It would be at least an hour of a lot of discussion about different things. And one of the things that I do remember was, and I think other people have talked about it too, that is the view of our existence, not just on this earth, but also in terms of the universe. Everything is so different in terms of what I call a sacred circular motion, as opposed to I call it the bricks mortar of another society. And that has been sort of the foundation of what I think alliances such as ours has been all about. I think all of us are dedicated to the notion that we must work together. We must understand each other. Sometimes it's very, very joyful, and sometimes it's very, very painful, but it's still worth the effort. and I'm kind of short-winded today, so which is unlike me. So I'll turn it over back to Shirley.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you very much. Francis, from our dear friend from all the way on the other side of the world, what are your hopes and dreams for our book?
Perhaps because I am on the other side of the world, I'm really conscious of the international relevance of the book. I'm just aware that every day in my own country, in the deeply immersed relationships I have with our own Indigenous peoples here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that I'm encountering the very challenges that are being discussed in the gatherings. And I'm also aware that those same challenges, I read about them in Australia and in other colonised states. And Barb and Elma and others today have talked about them, this very messy and troubled history, and the challenge that we, especially as settlers, have to decolonise ourselves and our relationships and our systems to make the possibility for a right relationship with Indigenous peoples. And of course, centering in that, we have to confront racism in a very productive way in order to overcome it and create something new. And this book provides a very intimate portrayals of a way to create a relationship between Indigenous peoples and settlers, and also locates it in a very wide historical, political, economic context that helps us understand how we got into this mess and a way of getting out of it. So I think the overwhelming message for me is a message of hope. And with Elma, I really hope that this book will find its way into a whole range of academic programs and book clubs and be a resource for policymakers and especially for settlers engaged in relationships with Indigenous peoples. And I really want to say to all of our listeners, we need you. We need you to help circulate this book. So we really encourage you to buy this book, to put it on Facebook, to circulate it through all your networks and platforms, because Elma has said it so poetically. We're in a very urgent state in our world right now, and we see it from New Zealand. Our view is just this chaotic unfolding of events. And so now more than ever, the wisdom that was forged through the gathering can speak to that chaos and help us, find a way through and out of it. So please support our humble effort and share the word.
Thank you, Francis. Jody, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, let's get to some of these great questions. So thank you to everyone who sent in questions and all of the really wonderful supportive comments too that have been coming through to the panel. They've been wonderful to see. I'm going to try and pick some questions that sort of add to the conversation that's already happened here. One of them that came through that I thought was quite interesting from Susan Gingle, I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. She wanted to know what helped you get through the really difficult conversations that happened in those gatherings. So what was it that allowed you to, overcome those moments when things got tough?
Does anybody speak to it?
Sure, I think so. So if you have a response, shout it out.
Well, I felt that one of the things that was there was that this circle everybody was equal in the circle. And to be able to express your feelings or your teaching to each other and to understand that we were there, not as politicians or bureaucrats or anything, but as human beings coming together in a circle in a spiritual way and be able to just share the feelings and the words with each other.
I think Wayne's going to say something. Well, I can jump in if Wayne isn't going to speak. And I was just about to say something very similar. Oh, go ahead, Wayne.
You were calling on me, but go ahead, Shirley. I'll wait.
Follow up then. Something similar to what Dana said was that, I wanted to say that it felt as if the circle and how the Wabanaki people set it up, it held us in a way that was, there were times that I would, as I say in the book, I would crawl into my tent at night and wonder, if when I woke up, everyone would be gone. But when we woke up, there was the fire and the circle that had been prepared for us by the Wabanaki firekeepers and leaders, and it brought us back like a magnet. And at the same time, I want to say that there are all kinds of ways to meet, that you don't have to meet the way we met, but it's the commitment to staying and not leaving when things get tough that starts to sort of weave you all together, I think. Wayne?
I was thinking about people who have gone on to the spirit world, and one of the people that I was thinking about most recently is Joanne Dana, who is my neighbor. She passed on just a short while ago. And the reason when I looked at the book, I looked at the pictures as well as other things, and she was in one of the pictures that I think she didn't she provide a meal for us at one of our gatherings here?
Yes, Wayne, you asked her to do that, and she did. It was wonderful.
Yeah, she did. And the reason I speak of her is she was probably, even though she was not very healthy physically, she attended things all over the country, and one of the things that she was most concerned about is the quality of the water, and that we should be paying attention to all of that. And I was so impressed with the things that she had to say, and she was always present at different places, even though I don't think she ever came to our gatherings, but yet she was always there in a much more powerful way. And I wanted to mention her because she's certainly a big factor in my life, and I'm sure that those of you that knew her would probably feel the same way as I do.
Thank you. We all remember her fondly. Jody, you want to?
So next question. So Tim Warnett sent some questions in advance, actually, that we received before the launch started. And a lot of them had to do with the writing process and the process of taking the gatherings from what they were as a community into book form. And there was a question in there about what it was like to work with an editor, but maybe I'll ask you one of the other ones instead. And that was whether writing what the experience of writing the book was like. Was it fun? Was it challenging? What was it like to try and translate that experience into words?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's another book. And I just want to say, I think the most important thing about that process was that we all agreed in the beginning that it would be our book, that everyone involved in the book would have the full rights of an author over not only their own words, but over the book as a whole and how they were represented in it. And that was so important to us because there is this, long-standing history of primarily non-Native people meeting with Indigenous people, gathering their stories and going off and writing a book, possibly making money off of it, getting a degree, whatever, and nothing given back. And this was like the last experience we wanted to have. We wanted to make sure that we started together and ended together. And I feel that you know, and that made the process much longer, of course, but so worth it, because by the end, everyone, I hope, was able to say, this is my book. You know, everybody could say this, it's our book. And that they were pleased with how they were represented in it. And I'd love to hear from anyone else about that.
Well, maybe we can get to two more questions just quickly, because we are over time at this point, and I know, you know, people I think are eager to you know, hear the discussion, but also might have other commitments this afternoon. So hopefully we can get to two more questions, and I think one of them, the one we'll end on, might help everyone out there as they come to the book themselves and you know, get into reading it. But first, Kat Greenstreet wanted to know how the people who were part of the circle, how they were initially invited or how they found their way there.
Would someone else like to speak to that?
Well, I've already spoken to how I was.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
How were we?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How were we invited, Wayne? That's what she's asking.
How did you find your way into the book? Yeah.
Into the book or into the gathering?
The gatherings.
So I like Mi'kmaq, we just followed along with somebody that we knew. And it's like, as I said, whoever introduces us to a group, you know, if we trust that person introducing us to that group, then it's a good indication that we're going to go. So it's important who introduces you into our community. And so that's how I came into that place.
Was that it, Jody? Was that the question?
And if we want, maybe we'll end with one more, because I think this is a great question to end on. Sarah Smith asked, what is a good mindset to bring to this book when reading it?
Oh.
I believe one of the things that a mindset is that we as human beings, two-legged people, that we need to sit down and be able to have an understanding with each other that we're all equal.
I think one of the mindsets that's important is humility, that we have to let go of our ego and our sense of rightness, and to be able to be willing to change our minds.
One of the things that when Shirley called me up about this whole business of you can only have one name in the cover for the author, and of course she named all of us that participated in this. Well, how are we going to do this to have inclusiveness in the authorship? And I thought about it for the longest time, and that's where the word Mobiane comes from. Mobiane, let us sit together. I think that kind of is the theme of the entire gathering book in all of that we have to say. I really learned a lot from reading what other people said and wrote, and Mobiane came to life, and I'm so glad that that inspiration for the word came, because I think it's the right word for all of us to be included in this gathering.
Well, that's a lovely way to end things.
It is, and I apologize to everyone who asked questions that we weren't able to get to. I'm very encouraged, though, to know that there was that much engagement out there, and I think it does speak to this moment that you have all captured so perfectly, that the moment for this book is now, and there is a large and receptive audience for it. I want to thank Shirley and all of Maopiane for generously sharing your time, your experiences, and your perspectives with us today. And thank you to everyone out there who chose to spend part of your afternoon or perhaps morning or evening, depending on where you are with us. Again, you can buy the gatherings wherever it is that you buy books, including the University of Toronto Press website. This book is truly a beacon in difficult times, and we hope that you will learn from it and be inspired by it. So thank you again for joining us today. I hope everyone stays well and stays healthy in these times.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you,
the-
Jody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Huh?
Great to
Thank you,
visit.
Shirley.